Hello everyone and welcome to another random video on the internet. Today we are taking a look at a matchup which I wanted to be the first to properly cover, but then some handsome bastard did it first. I'm glad I didn't make this earlier though, because my views on the power scaling of One Punch Man have recently shifted drastically, and I'm quite excited to talk about it. And either way, this video will be quite different from that one, and I want to make something very clear. This isn't an attack on anyone or a debunk on anything. I am simply here to present an alternate viewpoint and just give my reasons for why I personally believe this battle is a lot closer than most people would say it is. I'm just here to discuss a series I enjoy and give my own take on things. I am not trying to change your mind. I am not trying to convince you of anything. I'm doing this for my own enjoyment. With that out of the way, today we are talking about Monster Garou versus Healthy, Full Power Tatsumaki. We'll start with Perfected Fist Garou, and if I determine that he wouldn't be enough, then we'll move on to the next version of Garou, and so on until I can confidently say Garou beats Tatsumaki. This video is basically Tatsumaki running a gauntlet of Garous. Both combatants will start the battle fully on guard and prepare to duel, and both will be going for the kill here, but they will still be in character, so we can't just plug controllers into them and make them fight in the ideal way. And one last thing before we start, I would highly recommend that you watch my Sage Centipede vs Orochi video before or after you watch this one, as that matchup is very relevant to this one and it will give you a lot of insight on why I say what I say in this video, and will make my viewpoint more understandable. Without any further ado, let's get right into the matchup. Usually I would start things off by going over how strong both characters are, but this time I believe there is something very important to discuss beforehand. Garou's potential resistance to psychic powers. In the fight between Garou and Garou, despite Garou being far stronger than Garou at the time, he was able to quickly adapt to her psychic bindings, and Garou herself said that it would take a considerable amount of energy to knock him out, despite the fact that she was vastly superior to Garou at the time. In the One Punch Man webcomic, it is also confirmed that willpower is the key component to being able to resist psychic powers, and is almost a direct counter to them. And as we know, Garou is second to none in the entire series when it comes to willpower. But that is webcomic only as of the writing of this video, and has not actually been said in the manga. So all in all, if Tatsumaki does prove to be stronger than Garou, he might still be able to resist getting psychically crushed by her. Though personally, I believe the willpower and adaptation thing is in reference to resisting purely psychic attacks. I don't think it would make breaking through barriers easier, and I also don't think it would make physical objects, such as a massive drill for example, hurled at Garou easier to tank. It is also worth noting that Garou only adapted to Garou's bindings because Garou went on a monologue. He was paralyzed for a good bit before beginning to adapt, so Garou does need a bit of time before he can overcome psychic powers. But he should be able to adapt and resist psychic bindings if the gap in power isn't too vast and if he is given a little bit of time to do so. Now let's actually get into the combatants. I'll start with Tatsumaki since the format of this video makes it so we might have to talk about several versions of Garou, so I'll just get Tatsumaki out of the way now to allow us to focus on Garou later. If you've seen my last few One Punch Man scaling videos, you'll know I view Tatsumaki in very high regard. To talk about her, we first have to talk about Orochi. Orochi, as I explained in my Orochi vs Sage video, is extremely strong as he's able to pull part of Earth's core to the surface, and this feat, the pulling force of Orochi, has been calculated to be on the high end of small planet level. Not his punches, not his lasers, and definitely not the Gaia Cannon. Just his suck force alone. The actual Gaia Cannon should scale far above this. Saitama then blocks and overpowers the cannon with a serious squirt gun and blows Orochi apart. The next time Orochi appears, he fuses with Psychos, and the fusion also receives a boost from God. Orochi, right after first appearing, before she even fully forms, is confident she can take down Saitama and literally calls him fodder. Sairochi then fully forms and goes on to start absorbing energy from the earth through various flesh roots spread throughout the city. So logically, she should now be stronger than she was when she said she could beat the guy who overpowered the Gaia Cannon. With this, Sairochi reaches her peak and shoots a giant laser at Tatsumaki. This laser being fired astonishes Tatsumaki, and she's amazed that Psychos now has this much power. And this is after Tots had already witnessed incomplete Sairochi, so you can make the argument that the gap between incomplete and complete Sairochi is quite huge. Then, as I established in my Tatsumaki vs the S-Class video, Tatsumaki tanks the laser with her passive barrier. Not the bubble barriers, not the invisible barriers, just the passive aura surrounding her at all times when she fights. She later tanks the same beam with an invisible barrier and casually throws the attack away to the side. And she does all this while suppressed so as to not hurt the other heroes who are still in the danger zone. And she's also worried about the Earth getting hit by Sairochi's blast too, and specifically trying to make sure that none of them land on Earth. After this, Tatsumaki rescues the heroes, and while she's distracted, Sairochi is able to pierce her passive shield with these weird sword spear things. Now, I didn't bring this up in my S-Class vs Tatsu video because I didn't think it would be relevant, as any single attack from Tatsumaki would instantly one-shot the S-Class, but here it is a lot more important to cover because the fight is a lot closer. So this has been used to say Tatsumaki can defend herself while she's focused on another task, which is a fair thing to say. This would be consistent as Tatsumaki does use other barriers, not just the passive one, which indicates that the passive barrier isn't always at planet level, because why would she ever use other barriers if it was that strong all the time? I think the strength of the passive barrier depends largely on how much power Tatsumaki is pouring into it. If she uses a ton of power to attack, she'll have less left on defense. If she uses a ton of power for defense, she'll have less left to attack. And another key factor to the strength of Tatsumaki's barriers is concentration. Looking back at the instance where Tatsumaki got pierced, right before this she had just delivered a significant blow to Sairochi and directed her attention elsewhere because she did not expect Sairochi to recover so fast. So Tatsumaki needs to be concentrated to be able to use her barriers at a high level. However, that shouldn't really be an issue here because she's facing one single opponent and she has one single goal in mind: to defeat Garou. She doesn't have to divide her attention up between fighting, protecting others, and preserving the Earth in this battle. So her concentration would always be up unless Garou can cause some sort of distraction, or if Tatsumaki thinks he went down and lets her guard down. But either way, getting back into the scaling, at the end of the fight with Sairochi, Tatsumaki, while already damaged and fatigued due to having to hold back all the time, is able to instantly paralyze and one-shot Sairochi the moment she is allowed to go all out. She does exceed her limit here, but personally I think it's just because of all the damage and fatigue she had already accumulated. And there's also a theory floating around that God may have even attacked her here, but that isn't really proven. So to summarize the Tatsumaki portion, Orochi's pulling force is small planet level, and there is a huge, enormous, humongous gap between that and full power healthy Tatsumaki, which is represented by the graph on screen. I shall use this graph to compare various forms of Garou to Tatsumaki throughout this video. Moving on to Garou, we'll start with his perfected fist version right after he one-shot Sage Centipede, as anything before that is blatantly not enough to deal with Tatsumaki, at least in my opinion. This Garou is at the same time a lot more and a lot less impressive than the Esper. Nobody needs to tell anyone that he is definitely far, far faster than Tatsumaki. I'm pretty sure that nobody is going to deny that. However, he is also a lot weaker. The best attack potency showings he has are one-shotting Platinum S, who is at best multi-continental, and one-shotting Sage Centipede, who is small planet level. In fact, Sage's small planet level calc is lower than Orochi's pull strength calc. For more details on Orochi vs Sage, please check out my video on that exact topic. But just to give you an idea of where I believe Garou stands on the Tatsumaki scale, Sage's maximum durability is below Orochi's Suck Force alone based off feats, and I don't believe there is definitive lore to put Sage above Orochi either. So Sage would be lower than the lowest tier on this scale. Garou is able to one-shot Sage, which puts him a one-shot level above something that is below unmasked Orochi's Suck Force. Being generous to Garou and saying that the Gaia Cannon isn't too far above Orochi's Pull Force, he might be on the level of the serious Quart Gun from Saitama, the same one who incomplete Sairochi believed she could handle without issue. And again, that is being kind of generous. Garou is multiple tiers below Tatsumaki when it comes to attack potency and durability, and I do not believe he could break her barriers when she is concentrated. So how does this fight go? Is it just a stalemate? Garou can't be hit, Tatsumaki can't be damaged? Fly versus T-Rex scenario? Well, no, not exactly, at least in my opinion. As I've gone over in the Tatsumaki vs S-Class Heroes video, speed alone is not enough to survive Tatsumaki. Her passive barriers can tank blows for her, so she doesn't need to perceive attacks to live through them, and her attacks are high enough scale that they shouldn't really be able to be dodged. She can create a massive barrier to encompass the entire battlefield and then shrink it until she crushes Garou. She can generate huge psychic attacks of any kind to hit the entire battlefield and crush Garou. She can increase gravity to pin Garou to the ground for a second or two and then either crush him or, if he's resistant to that already, hurl a drill at him. Garou took a little while to adapt to Garou's bindings, so he wouldn't be able to just instantly break out of Tatsumaki's clutches. He would need a little bit of time to adapt, and in that time Tatsumaki could kill him in more ways than one. When Garou adapted to Garou's psychic powers, that was specifically because she had only immobilized him instead of instantly trying to kill him before he had a chance to adapt. Garou does have regeneration, but the most he's shown is being able to just regenerate an arm, and we do see that his real body is still inside the shell, so if his entire body is twisted into a pile of mush, I don't really see him regenerating from that. So overall, it is my belief that Tatsumaki should have this fight in the bag. Which is really surprising actually. If you had asked me a couple months ago about this fight, I would have said Garou stomps. But views change, I suppose. Up next is Bulky Garou, and it's really kind of the same situation here as in the last matchup. You can argue Garou got a one-shot level stronger from before, as he's pretty confident he can fight Saitama now, and he is surprised when Saitama takes a blow from him with no damage sustained. Garou also refers to himself as being much stronger now than he was previously. But even with this, the gap still just does not close. Fatigue Tatsumaki one-shot complete Sairochi, who should be stronger than incomplete Sairochi, who should be above Perfected Fist Garou level attack potency-wise. At best, this Garou might scale to incomplete Sairochi or maybe complete Sairochi, as we don't really know exactly how much power she gained between these two forms. The correct answer is probably somewhere in the middle of these two states in my eyes. In a fully bloodlusted battle where both combatants are going for the kill, this Garou could not damage Tatsumaki and would not be able to survive her attacks. He would likely be caught by some large-scale attack and crushed. To be fair though, this Garou does have a technique called Fajin, which bypasses durability to some extent and attacks internal organs. So he might have a chance at winning the fight that way if he can bypass Tatsumaki's barriers. The shockwaves from this attack do pass through Saitama's body and destroy stuff that's behind him every single time Fajin is used in their battle. So if the ripples can pass through someone of Saitama's durability, I don't really think Tatsumaki's barriers would be able to contain them. I think they would be able to pass through Tatsumaki's shielding and destroy her actual body. This is actually a hard counter Garou has to Tatsumaki. But overall, I would still lean toward the Esper taking this fight because Fajin likely wouldn't be Garou's opening gambit. He only uses it after his regular attacks prove to be ineffective in character, while Tatsumaki's every attack is going to be fatal to Garou from the very start just due to the sheer nature of the fact that she is way above him in terms of attack potency and durability. So Garou would likely get killed before he thinks of using Fajin. But again, if he does use it, it's raps for Tatsumaki, even despite the fact that she is a lot stronger than him. The next version of Garou would be Winged Garou, and this is where things get interesting. Saitama remarks Garou got a little better, and Garou says, "You call this just a little?" implying he himself believes he got way better. And just the pure fact that Saitama is actually able to see growth in Garou is very impressive, as he usually can't tell how strong monsters are because they're so far below him. So if the last Garou was somewhere in between incomplete and complete Sairochi, this one should be comfortably at or above complete Sairochi level. I'd place him maybe somewhere in the middle of Sairochi and Fatigue Tatsumaki in terms of attack potency and durability. Tatsumaki's maximum output should still scale higher with her barriers and attacks. However, this Garou is at a level comparable to complete Sairochi, who was actually able to damage Tatsumaki a bit through her passive barrier. So it is possible that with multiple blows, Winged Garou might be able to break through and kill the Esper, if she doesn't react fast enough to put up a stronger shield. This fight is probably the closest we can get between these two characters, as Tatsumaki's maximum output is higher, but Garou can overcome her base barrier. I do believe this Garou has a solid chance of being able to take Tatsumaki out by either breaking her shield before she can react or by using Fajin. But if Tatsumaki is able to see or feel her passive shield cracking and create a stronger barrier, and if she catches Garou before he thinks of using Fajin, then Tatsumaki could still win too. Overall, I believe this is kind of a toss-up here, as again, Tats can one-shot Garou in an instant with a wide attack, but Garou can also instantly kill her with multiple blows or Fajin. But seeing as this comes down to who ultimately lands their finishing blow first, and seeing as Garou is the far faster of the two, I am inclined to give the edge to him. Technically, the video could end here, but let's talk about Gargoyle Garou for funsies. And here I want to first and foremost talk about a few arguments that I've heard for Garou that I don't believe would automatically put Garou above Tatsumaki. The first one is that Garou's attack bulged the earth and was said to be breaking the dimensional seal, something which Tatsumaki never did. However, this attack was directly aimed at the core of the earth, and it was a Fajin attack, so it sent shockwaves through the planet, which affected its magnetic and gravitational fields, which then caused a spatial distortion, which then caused a hole to appear in the dimensional seal. It is a result of the Earth being affected. So just this by itself shouldn't automatically put Garou above Tats, as Tats never targeted the Earth the way Garou did. And also, in the original version of this fight, the lion guy is convinced that this hole is the result of a tectonic shift, implying that even something like that might be strong enough to create a hole in the seal. So Tatsumaki, who should scale far above any tectonic shift, should be capable of replicating this if she wanted to. Second, one of Blast's companions believes no Earthling could cause what Garou caused. This is before the redraw, so we don't know if it's canon or not, but it doesn't really matter as Tatsumaki is always suppressed. She never shows her full power, so if she has the capability to damage the dimensional seal, the lion guy would not know it. And we don't know if these people watched the Sairochi battle or not, so we can't verify whether they'd know Sairochi's full power or not. And I get the feeling Blast would have probably intervened when he saw continents flying off into space if he knew what was happening. So I kind of doubt he was watching, but that's just me. And lastly, Saitama punched Garou numerous times throughout the battle, and Garou did not go down. However, we know for a fact Saitama was holding back, and we also know for a fact that the power of his normal punches varies vastly depending on who he fights. Throughout his entire fight with Garou, Saitama is making troll faces and doing goofy poses and laughing at him and calling him a cosplayer. It's very obvious he's not taking Garou seriously, so we don't know how much power Saitama is using here. And even after Garou takes the consecutive normal punches, Saitama casually one-shots him with a normal punch, while having an indifferent expression on his face, showing that a single normal punch could just end Garou whenever. So I don't believe Garou surviving some arbitrary amount of force from Saitama, who is specifically trying to keep him alive, really scales him anywhere. And one more thing I have not covered for Tatsumaki is her fight with Saitama. And here she actually gets a very impressive statement from the Baldy. The statement varies from translation to translation, but the two main options are: I was trying to keep your rampage to where no one was around, but I couldn't really contain you. Don't know what kind of training you've done, but you must train really hard. Very impressive. And then the official translation is: I wanted to get you away from people while we fought, but that's easier said than done. Though I don't know much about psychic power, it sure seems like you've trained a lot. You're pretty tough. Unironically, Saitama kind of gave Tatsumaki more of a compliment than he ever gave to Garou, before he went cosmic at least. You're pretty tough coming from Saitama is insanely impressive. You could argue he's just praising her for training hard, but I don't think it's just a statement about her training, as he himself says he doesn't know much about how psychic powers work, and he'd be basing this conclusion off of how strong Tatsumaki seemed or felt or looked or whatever. And he says containing her is no easy task too, so that kind of confirms it. One more thing, I've heard it said that the "you're pretty tough" line might just be something that was added in the English version and wasn't there in the RAWs. I actually tried to seek out the RAWs and translate them, but Google Translate doesn't really translate them all that well, so who knows. You can verify if it's true or not, but either way, Saitama compliments her here, which again is more impressive than any compliment he ever gave to Garou before he went cosmic. And one final note, Tatsumaki does also outspeed casual Saitama at one point. Not really that scalable, but still fun to mention. But with all that established, I still do believe that Gargoyle Garou wins. He is massively faster and he can definitely kill Tatsumaki at this point. Gargoyle's calcs vary wildly depending on what time frame you use for his earth-bulging feat, ranging from small planet level to large planet level, which is an enormous range, so it can't really be used to scale Garou definitively until we get a time frame. But at this point he should be way stronger than normal Winged Garou and should be a match for Tatsumaki's maximum output raw power wise. Maybe just slightly weaker. And he's massively faster, so yeah, I do think Garou wins mid-diff maybe, as I think he might still need to pull out Fajin to take Tatsumaki out if she puts all her strength into a barrier, or something to block his regular blows. So in conclusion, in my opinion, Tatsumaki does actually make it all the way to Winged and Gargoyle Garou, which again is something I wouldn't have said just a few months ago. I used to have her below even Perfected Fist Garou until my latest reread of the Monster Association arc. But in any case, this has been it for me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, I hope it wasn't too outlandish sounding, I hope I haven't lost all my credibility, and yeah, just, again, this is just for fun, this is just me sharing my own take, and again, I am just doing this for the funsies, I'm not trying to change your mind, I'm not trying to revolutionize the scaling for One Punch Man. I'm just sharing my own thoughts, and I kind of want to see what you guys think about this, because again, this is very new as far as I'm aware. I don't think anyone has ever claimed that Tatsumaki could match up to Winged Garou before. So let me know what you think, and, you know, maybe you do believe this now, maybe you don't, who knows, but again, the main point of this video was just for me to kind of get my thoughts out, so yeah, I guess that's done. And with all that being said, I wish you have an excellent rest of your day. See you next time. Goodbye.